morning, everybody. Everybody have a good fall break? Yeah? Do anything fun? Everybody shaking their head no? Nobody did anything fun? It's 8 in the morning, right? All right. So today we're going to go over the materials that I assigned to you. And then we've got a guest coming to speak about study abroad, and she should be here sometime around 9 o'clock. And so we might get finished up a little bit early today. Just depends. We're into our advisement season. How many of you have seen your advisors already? Okay, a few of you. Did you all spend any time going over your guides? Yeah? Did they stay the way you thought they were going to stay? No. And we knew that, right? I mean, we knew we were going to come up with our best guess, and then by going through some advisement, you would probably make some changes. And that's perfectly fine. It is a living document. It is not set in stone. Things will happen. Classes will maybe get canceled or move to a different semester. Hopefully that doesn't happen too much. But it does happen from time to time, especially if you're going to take something like a minor or something that maybe isn't highly populated. I don't think that affects anybody in here that I can recall. No, some of you had minors, but I think most of you had fairly popular minors. So your courses should be, fairly well offered. Your chemistry courses are going to pretty much so be offered as we have told you that we offer them. We offer general chemistry and organic chemistry every semester, including the summer. Analytical chemistry is a fall-spring offering now. PChem 1 is a fall, PChem 2 is a spring. We pretty much so follow that. At least the 15 years that I've been here, I can't remember us deviating from that course offering for those particular required courses. Now, our electives can get switched around. I mean, you might think you might want to take, medicinal chemistry in the fall, but maybe it ends up being offered in the spring. You may have to switch some things around because of that or select a different elective. But that's okay. So we're getting close to the opportunity for you all to not only get advised, but to sign up for your classes. What's the take-home message that you should have gotten from your advisor if you've seen advisement, if you've been to advisement, about signing up for your classes? Pardon? That's right. Do them as quickly as possible. There are a number of courses that will fill up very, very quickly. The good news is your chemistry courses typically aren't those courses. Okay? You will be able to get into your chemistry course. I've never had a situation where somebody has not been able to get into a chemistry course that they needed. Now, you might not be able to get into the section of Gen Chem 2 that you wanted. Maybe you want that whatever section. It may fill up fairly quick, but there's usually enough sections of chemistry courses to make. So, or to give you the opportunity to get a seat. So that's usually not a problem. But what other kinds of courses might be problematic in terms of you getting a seat in? Your general eds, that's right. So your GEC courses. So English composition usually isn't much of a problem because we offer a lot of sections of that. But again, it may not be the section that you absolutely wanted. So again, trying to get into that early. English 203, if you're thinking about going into that world literature, it fills up usually fairly quickly. And a lot of students end up having to get into one of the online sections just to have it make. I highly recommend that students not take many courses by online sections if you're a face-to-face on-campus student. I think that while online has certainly opened up a lot of avenues for a lot of individuals and certainly would give you some scheduling flexibility, we typically find that students don't do as well in online courses as they do face-to-face courses. Can anybody want to take a guess as to why that may be the case? Yeah. Yeah, so the accountability model in online is very different. You all have a schedule. You have to be here from 8 to 9:30 on Tuesdays, right? What kind of time management skills do you think you need if you're going to be in an online class, though? You've got to set your own schedule. You'll have some deadlines for things to turn in, but what I've typically found when I've advised students on online courses who are face-to-face students like you all are, is that, well, I got this other test in this other class, and I've got this other thing, and I don't really have anybody telling me I have to study for my online class at the moment, so it kind of tends to get put off. Now, some students do fabulous in online courses. I'm not saying it's impossible. It just requires a different set of time management skills that a lot of students, especially freshmen, probably don't quite have down yet, whether you think you do or not. And online courses actually have a higher DFW rate than face-to-face courses, typically. So I would highly recommend that you not take a history or a English 203 or something like that online if you can avoid it. I think being in class with a group certainly is much more productive. We are coming also upon midterm, right? Midterm's approximately the 15th of this month, more or less. What do we need to know about midterm? Pardon? Notebooks are going to be due pretty soon, right? I think next week. Is that right? Right? So you're going to have your notebooks up to date, and you're going to have to bring those to class, and I will dedicate a little bit of group work inside for you to get an opportunity to go in and share with your fellow students what you've got in your notebook, and you'll change back some ideas, give you a little bit of time to catch that up, and then you'll leave that notebook with me, and I'll grade it and turn it back to you. Well, definitely the following week, but you'd certainly be able to come pick it up early if you wanted to, okay? So notebook is due next week. The notebook is a substantial part of your grade, so you need to make sure it's all there. I am not going to grade your notebook on penmanship. I am not going to grade your notebook on your grammar or anything like that. It's your notebook. But I'm going to look at it for completeness, okay? So that's going to be 90% of your grade is how complete is your notebook. Do you have that table of contents? Do you have an entry for every class period? Those types of things that we talked about early on. So I'm going to look at that. Do you have some ad hoc notes in there about different things? Like we're supposed to keep notes about the things that we are assigned. So I'm going to look at all that kind of stuff and assign you a grade based on that. So you've got a week pretty much so to catch your notebook up if it's not caught up. So you need to do that. Also, you should be getting interim grades pretty soon, right? I have not turned in your interim grade yet for this class. Can anybody tell me what the importance of interim grades are? It's not an official grade, right? It doesn't affect your financial aid. What does it affect? What does it impact? What should it impact? What should we be looking for in our interim grades? I can wait. What should we be thinking about interim grades? Okay. What does an interim grade tell you? Where you stand at that particular moment in time. Right? Now, in this class, that interim grade is actually fairly significant. Why is it fairly significant? It's fairly significant because you've actually had a number of assignments that you've gotten grades for at this point, right? You've had the activity assignment, right? You've had several attendance assignments on the note cards, right? You've had your semester by semester guide assignment. So a good chunk of points that are available to you in the course, not 50%, but a good chunk have already happened. So it's going to give you a fairly accurate idea of where you stand right now. Is that true in all courses? How many of you have a course right now that you have not had a substantial assignment in that's been graded and returned to you? So a couple of you. And shame on those faculty members. Because you're going to, in those particular classes, your interim grade, who knows what it means, right? But in your courses in which you've had regular assignments and things given back to you, your interim grade is really a barometer for how well you're doing at that moment in time. And it should be a wake-up call one way or the other, right? It should be a, oh, I need to focus more here, or I need to focus a little less there, or whatever the case may be. But that's what it's for. And it is for you at about the time that you're thinking about advisement. It is something that if you are concerned with, it's an opportunity for you to go talk to your professor. It is an opportunity for you to actually make a change. And it's an interim grade. I mean, it doesn't affect your GPA, but it can affect how you perform at the end of the semester. We find that students that have grades that are less than optimal at interim typically have less than optimal grades at the final, when final grades are due or are turned in. But does that have to be the case? It does not. You can change, right? You can change whatever it is that you need to change and get that fixed. In this class, your interim grade will not include your drop attendance grade. I will look at the number of days that we had. I'll take that times 20. That's the total number of points that you'll have at interim for attendance. I'll take your semester by semester guide. I'll add those points, right? Your notebook, since interim grades are due by this Friday, I won't have your notebook graded, so it won't have your notebook as well, but it'll also have activity 1. So I'm going to turn in interim grades on Thursday. I've got until Friday to do so. So if you miss turning in an activity for activity 1, you've got an opportunity today to get at least partial credit for an activity. And I sent it out. Does anybody remember what it is? The Career and Internship Fair from 1 to 5, right? So you can go to that activity, take your activity form, go around, talk to some folks, get that signed off on, and then I will either count that as activity 2 for those of you who turned in an activity already for activity 1, or for those of you who did not turn in activity 1, you can get 75% of activity 1's value. So 75 points is better than 0 points. And so I'm going to turn in interim grades on Thursday. So if you do that activity today and you want to count it for activity 1, you need to get that signed today, and you need to get that to me by email or come by my office and drop it off, whatever the case may be. But you need to get that to me so that we can get you partial points for that. Okay? Any questions about that? Yes, sir. Yeah, they're on Canvas under the activity. You've got the I'll show you. We'll look at it in a minute, but it's in Canvas. You can get that activity form there. Yep. So we had a couple of things to watch and read, and one of them that I wanted you to look at was this synthesis of Persianol, right? So why did I assign this to you to watch? Some of you have indicated you wanted to do research, right? As a career. It's what a research scientist largely does in a lot of cases. Now, not all. This is obviously an organic chemist, right? Doing organic chemistry. A lot of words in there that you don't know anything about yet, but you will. In part, I wanted you to watch this video because I wanted you to be exposed to some more advanced language in the field. You don't know what a palladium cascade reaction is yet. At some point you will. You don't know what pyrrolidine-containing ester is. None of those types of things yet, but you're getting exposed to the language. Also, I wanted you to notice how chemists can impact other fields, right? Persianol is, they think it has what kind of activity? What do they think it's useful for? As an insecticide. Why are insecticides important? Keep bugs away from crops. As much as I would like to believe we could, You cannot feed the population of the earth we have today without chemistry. Organic gardens are a thing that people like me do in their backyard for a few tomatoes here and there. We depend on genetically modified crops. We depend on insecticides to keep bugs away from crops. We depend on fertilizers to make the soil rich enough to grow the food that we need. All of those things we depend on, and all of those things chemistry impacts. There's an entire field of study called agrochemistry. Archer Daniels Midland, Bayer Chemical, all of these chemical companies have a part of what they do in agrochemistry, whether it's more of the biotech side of it, of preparing genetically modified plants, or more on the chemistry side where they're trying to develop new insecticides. Why do we need new insecticides? Pardon? Okay. Turns out that insects, like every other living thing, can evolve, right? And if they're exposed to something for a while, the ones that survive are stronger, right? They're resistant to it and they multiply. It's a never-ending battle. And so chemists are always working to try to find new weapons to combat things like insects, right? I mean, think about fire ants around here. Have you ever been able to truly kill them? We try and we try, right? We can kind of keep them under control. The same thing in agrochemistry, right? And so to support the population that we have on this planet, you got to have scientists that are doing research in agrochemistry. Now, we can get and talk about the politics of this, that, and the other. I'm not interested in that here. But the fact of the matter is that we have to have insecticides. We have to have things that can be used to improve our crop yields. Kind of important. We have become dependent on an economy that's based on cheap food. Food is readily abundant in this country, in many countries, and inexpensive. And that hasn't always been the case. My grandparents, of course, grew up during the Depression. Food was a major part of their day. Growing food, harvesting food, having enough food to survive on was a major part of their day. You all don't think about that anymore. You go to the Fresh, you go to one of the pods, you go to a restaurant, you get your food, spend an hour, whatever, and that's about it. So chemistry does have an impact on our food supply, our food security. These are really global problems that chemists contribute to. That was one of the things that I wanted you to get out of it. I didn't want you to necessarily get that 16 steps is amazing. But, you know, if we're going to use that as a new insecticide, do you think we can go down and harvest enough of that plant to get enough insecticide? Probably not, right? Because you'd have to end up farming that plant, which would take away from the food supply, land that you could grow to grow enough plant to get the insecticide, okay? So is that better? Summer internships. I had you do some reading on some summer internships. For you all, this is probably a little premature, but it is not so premature that you shouldn't be thinking about it, okay? One of the things that we know is that students that go and do summer internships, get summer jobs in their field, get those experiences, typically do better overall over the entire course of their lifetime than students who do not. I did not do a summer internship, but I did get a job at a analytical laboratory when I was in college, and I worked there for 2 years. So I was in an environment where people were talking chemistry all day. We were doing chemical analysis for customers. I got the customer side of it. I was immersed in that kind of thing. Many of you can't have that opportunity just because they're few and far between to have a job your entire college career where you're working in the field that you're studying. That's usually not the way it goes for most folks. But you can do summer internships, okay? The Sci Scholars Program is a great one if you can get into it. The internship for Sci Scholars, I sent this out, I think, to the Chem Major listserv, if you're on that listserv. Sci Scholars make up to $10,000 for a summer. Plus you get $1,000 to use for whatever you want. Plus you get travel. 10 grand's pretty good for 8 weeks, right? Pretty good wages. You end up being in a environment where, again, you would be immersed in your field. They talk about finding your home early. Why is that important? Why is it important to find your internship early? Okay, that's true. Anything else? I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Definitely true. You know, the courses that you all are going to take to get your chemistry degree or your biochemistry degree are only one part of your curriculum. There's that hidden curriculum. Some of you will get part of that curriculum through student affairs on campus, activities on campus, but some of you will get that hidden curriculum through things like internship and research. And fortunately for this major, believe it or not, each and every one of you have to do research. That's your capstone, right? You have to do at least a semester of capstone research. That actually gives you a leg up on many other, even science disciplines on campus that don't have that as a requirement. Why is that important? So let's compare and contrast that to something like maybe biology, where they don't necessarily require research as part of the capstone. For other, good reasons they don't, but how would that give you a leg up compared to one of those majors? Yeah, no, that's true. Absolutely true. What else? If you all are going to go to medical school or graduate school, what do you need at least probably 3 of that sound very easy to get but actually are more difficult than you might think? Letters of recommendation. Now, you all call them letters of recommendation. Many people do. But nobody wants a letter of recommendation. They want a letter of evaluation. When I'm asked to give a letter, it's really always a letter of evaluation. They assume that because I'm going to write the letter, I'm making the recommendation. And what they want to know are details. Where am I going to get the most insight into you in terms of being able to evaluate your abilities as a worker, your abilities to solve complex problems? You think I'm going to get that information from this class? Probably not. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and we're not wanting to participate too much, right? What am I going to say? But if you come into the lab and you work for somebody 10 hours a week, right? You're working on your capstone project, you run into brick walls, those things have to be solved. All of a sudden, that professor can start talking about not only is this individual smart as evidenced by their transcript, but they worked really hard to solve this problem, and it wasn't easy. And solving that problem resulted in them giving a presentation at a local conference, or resulted in them being a co-author on a paper. Right? Those types of things can start to be utilized. If you do internships, you have another source of folks that you can go and get information or get a good letter of evaluation from. So finding your home early is very, very important. If you all think that you can start looking for an internship in April for May, that's not how it works. You need to start looking now if you're thinking about something for next summer. So that's one of the things that they mean by finding your home early. Treat the internship as an extended interview. What do they mean by that? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, you wake up in the morning, you put on comfortable clothes, you come to class, we don't really care, right? Take your notes, go home, study, get prepared for the test. In an internship, you're expected to be there on time. You have set duties that you must accomplish by the end of the day. And not only that, you have to do it in a professional environment, right? You might be interacting with customers, you might be interacting with patients or test subjects, whatever the case may be. It's up a notch, right? You have to be able to integrate the things that you've learned and have a little bit of business savvy about it, right? So you have to be prepared to work a little differently, as they say here, right? You're going to be in an environment where learning is really important. For whatever reason, most students come into class and they think, well, I can learn it and then I can forget it. I just got to get this class done and then I can move on to the next one. That's not how it works in chemistry, and that's certainly not how it works in the job market or in the quote-unquote real world. I hate that term, but it fits here, right? If you learn something at your internship, they're going to expect you to be able to not only learn that and keep it in your mind, but to utilize it at every point that it's necessary to utilize that, right? Very, very important that we keep that in mind. So learning will not stop during your internship. Okay? It's important to take the initiative to find an internship. You may not think right now that it's going to make a big difference, but I guarantee you those types of experiences are what is going to set your transcript apart. I will tell you a dirty little secret right now about med school applications, because most of you want to go to med school. You're going to be competing against a pool of individuals that have a 4.0, that have difficult majors, that have excellent communication skills, that have checked off each and every one of the boxes, have all the volunteer hours, all of that good stuff. And that pool of people that meet those qualifications will be larger than the number of slots they have to fill. So what kind of environment does that create? Yeah, I call it a hyper-competitive environment. I think it's too competitive, to be quite honest with you, but the American Medical Association limits the size of grad school admissions. There are more people in this room that are qualified and smart enough to be physicians, but not everybody will become one because of the hyper-competitive environment that you're in. So it's not enough to have a tough major with a good GPA with the right number of hours. You need to have something on that resume that's going to set you apart, because you're going to go and you're going to interview if you get lucky enough to get a med school interview. And they're going to talk to you about things that you've done. And if all you can say is, well, I went to class and I learned, but each and every one of you have the ability to walk into that interview because you're a chemistry or biochemistry major and say, this is the problem I worked on for my capstone research. That's something that they can talk to you about. But if you can say that and you can also say something about this, I think you're even better off. It's that engagement piece that they're always looking for. Is it important that all internships be summer internships? It's not. You can do things throughout the regular school semester that would be internship-like, but the summer is an excellent time to do internships because you have an extended period of time where you're not really focused on much in terms of your studies or anything like that, right? Many of you will not be engaged in the summer on campus. And so this is an excellent opportunity for you to have that summer job or that summer internship, okay? And so thinking about that now, I think, is very, very important, okay? It is going to be more important for you to go land that summer job where you're using your chemistry or your biochemistry degree than it is to go work that job that maybe will last throughout the school year where you're working at a fast food restaurant. Nothing wrong with those types of jobs. That experience is fine and dandy. But it doesn't set you apart on your resume, right? So you've got to think about the long game here. And there are a number of things that you can do to get those summer experiences, because you might be thinking right now, well, where am I going to go in the summer in South Mississippi to use my biochemistry information or my chemistry degree information? There's only so many places that hire people like that, right? We got a couple of labs in town. There's a few things on the coast. There's a few refineries. There's a couple of companies here in Hattiesburg. There's hybrid plastics out at the park. There's a couple of them over on the research building on campus, Oxiteno and others. But they don't have a lot of opportunities for folks, maybe one every year that they make available, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to have to look more broadly, right? One of the things that you can look at is so-called REU programs. Research experience for undergraduates. There are a number of opportunities across the United States for this, and I think this is a hot link. Let's see if it take me there. But it's run by the National Science Foundation. You can go to the National Science Foundation website and you can search for an REU site. You can find REUs all over the United States. If you have interest in living in the Northeast, search for REUs in the Northeast. My daughter 2 summers ago did an REU at Princeton University. She's now in graduate school at Princeton University. It created an opportunity for her. She went there, they paid her for 8 weeks. I think they paid her $6,000, gave her a place to live and a meal plan, and she worked with a world-famous chemist for 8 weeks. Made up her mind where she wanted to go to graduate school in doing that. Okay? You can start REUs typically it's after your sophomore year. So if you're thinking about the summer and you want to do something in your field, earn some cash, get some experience, these REUs are great. So you can search for those REUs. We actually have an REU on campus. I think it's still active in polymer science and engineering. We used to have an REU in chemistry. These are competitive programs. I know Ole Miss has an REU site. You don't necessarily have to go far if you don't want to. But there are typically several REU sites in each quadrant of the United States. So go out there and search. See who's doing what you might be interested in. Go do an REU. If you're thinking about graduate school and not medical school it's fine to go on an REU. But if you're thinking about graduate school, I would say you need to do an REU. It's almost an unwritten requirement. Can you get into graduate school without doing it? Yes, absolutely. But the REU is going to give you that initial experience and give you an idea of whether or not you want to do graduate school. Some people go to REUs and it's like my daughter, it was, yep, this is what I want to do. Other people go to an REU and they go, you know what? I'm glad I did that because I do not want to do research. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to end up being a research chemist or a bench chemist, but the skills that you learn in your REU will definitely be useful around. And then there's that ACS Sci Scholars program. If you're thinking about industry, I think that would be an excellent opportunity. But what if you don't get that REU or that internship? This is where our growth mindset has to kick in, right? Again, REUs And internships are going to be competitive. REUs are less competitive than internships. Usually, if you apply to enough REU sites, you can get into an REU. So there are actually REUs all across the country, as I mentioned, but there are also REU-like programs across the globe. Okay? I seem to be talking a lot about my daughter today, but she applied to one in Switzerland and got accepted to that one. Chose to go to Princeton, but there are REU-type programs in Switzerland, Germany, England. You just have to know where to look. Okay, if you're interested in going to Europe, Germany's a great place to look. You can look at what's called the DAAD. It's their equivalent of the National Science Foundation, and they have all kinds of exchange programs where students can go and work in a German lab for a while. To freshmen? Freshmen, it's going to be a little more limited because typically for these REUs, they want you to at least have completed your sophomore year. But there are opportunities. There are opportunities for summer employment through maybe some internships. The REUs are going to typically be for people that completed their sophomore year, although that's not always. You'll just have to look at the REU. But there are opportunities on this campus that you can make use of. Okay? So let's suppose you don't get an REU or an internship, or that's not what you really want to do. Maybe at this summer you want to maybe take a summer class here on campus and maybe get a part-time job doing something, right? Go around and talk to the faculty. Go to the chemistry office and say, I'm so-and-so and I'd like to see who might be interested in hiring a student worker this summer. Faculty who are funded typically write money into their grants to pay for student workers. You may not be doing quote-unquote research during the summer, but you'd be in a lab doing something that supports the research enterprise. Okay? I know when I was actively doing a lot of research, and every one of my grants I wrote money in to hire at least 2 undergraduate students every year. And I would hire a student for a semester. Sometimes it was for 2 semesters, just depending on what their situation was. Sometimes it was for the summer. And I would have them come in and help us keep the lab clean, help us do our inventory, help us do a few things, the general housekeeping kind of things that we needed done. But then there was almost always usually a little bit of time left over that they wanted to get paid for, and so we would find little projects for them to start on. Maybe I needed a compound made for my graduate students, so I'd have them follow the recipe and make that molecule for my graduate student or whatever. So there are opportunities, but those opportunities don't come looking for you. Right? That's the thing that's important. These opportunities never come looking for you. You have to go looking for opportunities. Now, it's true that from time to time something will fall at your feet. But even then, you have to be wise enough to know to look at that opportunity. Right? So, obviously, summer jobs in the department. When my wife was doing the freshman and sophomore labs, she always hired undergraduate students to come in as quote-unquote prep TAs. And I think Miss Autumn, who is now doing that job, probably does the same thing. So if you're thinking about that, go talk to the laboratory coordinator. Hey, I'd like to have a part-time job. Well, you know what? We don't have anything this semester because we're halfway through it, but the person that's doing it for us right now is graduating. So if you're interested, we could start in the spring, right? Typically they pay, I don't know what they pay anymore, $8.50, $9 an hour, something like that. But you're getting experience. You got a flexible work schedule, something that you can put on your resume that would set you apart from others. You'd get experience working with glassware, chemicals, setting things up for lab. And from time to time, we also hire people in the tutorial center. So as you complete your general chemistry sequence, and you did pretty well, you could go and talk to Miss Autumn about, I'd like to tutor in the tutorial center. And we pay students to do that, a couple of students. So there are opportunities within the department to get to get experience both inside the lab and, not necessarily in the lab. And that's what they mean here kind of by building your own summer experience. You can actually make your own summer experience in a number of ways. For those of you who want to go to med school, it is a good investment of your time to volunteer if nothing else comes up. Let's see, I wasn't able to get an internship, I didn't do an REU. Maybe I can volunteer for somebody. I volunteer to go work in a lab. I'll volunteer to work in the tutorial center. You can do those types of things. Yes, they're not going to pay you because it's volunteer by definition, but it's going to pay in the long run, right? Again, you got to think about the long game. Anybody have anything to say about summer opportunities or internships? How many of you are thinking about trying to find something this summer? In general, it doesn't have to be chemistry related. Right? A good number of you are trying to find something this summer. Well, is that experience going to be better if it's something that, like working at Target or working in your field? Working in your field is going to be much more important, right? It was 1993 when I got my job at Environmental Services Company. I was about to get married. I needed a job. For some reason, I thought getting married without a job was a great idea. So I needed a job. And I had some friends that were working at places like Pizza Hut and Simple Simon's Pizza, and I just hated the thought. I really did. I hated the thought of doing that. I didn't see the point in it for me. And so this was back prior to the World Wide Web being what it is today. And so I literally picked up the yellow pages, and I went to laboratory testing, and the first listing there was environmental services. I picked up the phone and I called them. I told them who I was, told them I was a chemistry major and I was looking for a job. And they said, "You're lucky, the guy who was doing the lab tech job just gave us 2 weeks notice, come in and talk to us." And I got a part-time job doing chemical analysis for Fortune 500 companies. I was doing analysis for Tyson Foods, Campbell Soup, several other smaller companies around in Northwest Arkansas, Walmart. Believe it or not, Walmart has to have chemical analysis done on what's called runoff water from their parking lots. Had to be done. Somebody had to do it. I got experience going into the field, talking with customers, working with managers, and doing the laboratory analysis. All because I picked up the yellow pages and looked in the back because I needed an opportunity. You can create a number of these opportunities for yourself. You may just have to be a little creative about how you do it. Okay? So the video chemistry careers, I'm not going to play that one. What did you learn from the video on chemistry careers? What was your take-home message about the chemistry careers video? That's right. Not all chemists have to be sitting behind a bench in a lab coat, do they? I spend very little of my time these days in a lab coat behind a bench. What else did you learn? Okay. The technology that goes into just about everything that we deal with today, right? A chemist has impacted that somehow, either through synthesis of the material, analysis of the material. Okay. Chemistry is probably, in my opinion, and I'm biased, obviously, but it is one of the more versatile degrees in terms of getting a career, even though chemistry is a pretty old discipline now. The skills that you learn, definitely important for chemistry, but can be applied to just about any other job opportunity. In higher education, chemists end up not only teaching, but end up in administration like I have because of the problem-solving skills that we've developed. They end up in companies and ultimately end up being managers because of the problem-solving skills that they've developed. They usually manage technicians. If you're a PhD chemist, you end up being more of a manager than you do an actual practicing scientist at some point in your career. Okay. Our assignment for next week, and you all need to write this down, is to start exploring on our own chemistry careers. And we're going to have a conversation about these next week. I expect everybody to come with something to talk about. Okay? And we're going to start looking at traditional careers in chemistry and non-traditional careers. So I want you to have something in your notebook about traditional and non-traditional. If I can reach that far. Careers. So you're going to have to do a little Google research. I would start with this video. Okay? You're going to be able to find all kinds of information on the web. You can work together on this. I don't care. It's perfectly fine. But in the traditional career category, right, you're going to be thinking about that stereotypical scientist, person with safety glasses and a lab coat kind of stuff. Those traditional routes. And then there's the non-traditional routes. The only limitation I'm going to give you on this is that you can't say that graduate school is a career, and you can't use physician. Okay, I want you to think a little bit beyond that. So you can't say, a traditional career is to get my undergraduate degree and go to graduate school. I'm talking about when your education is done. What kinds of things can people do? Okay. There's some obvious ones on the traditional, right? Teaching, bench scientist. But get a little more creative than that. Okay? Like agrochemistry and the things that we talked about today a little bit. Those are going to be kind of traditional things that chemists and biochemists do. Okay? And then in the non-traditional, you may have to dig a little deeper for. But there are a plethora of non-traditional chemistry career options out there. My postdoctoral advisor's son got his degree in chemistry. My postdoctoral advisor obviously was a chemist. And his son did not want to end up being like his dad. But he was good at chemistry, so he did it. Then he went to law school, became a patent lawyer, and was ultimately hired by Google. Makes lots of money and uses his chemistry knowledge every day for the patents that Google puts together for their technologies. Okay? Believe it or not, Google does more than just technology on search engines. They do a lot of different things, and they need people with that kind of information to help them position themselves business-wise in a very strong place. So there are a lot of ways that you can go into non-traditional careers. So do some digging. Okay? So come prepared next week to talk about traditional careers and non-traditional careers in chemistry, and we'll put them up and we'll talk about them broadly. I expect an entire class participation in this, okay? So we'll want to go down that route. What are the branches of chemistry? Oh, yeah. Honey. Yep. I want it in your notebook. I want it in your notebook. So as we think about the traditional side of chemistry, we really need to know what kinds of subfields of chemistry exist, right? So chemistry is an umbrella. What's underneath that umbrella? What are some subdisciplines? Pardon? Organic chemistry? Yeah, my favorite. What else? Physical chemistry? Analytical chemistry? What else? Biochemistry? What else? Pardon? Inorganic chemistry. That's right. Or as I like to call it, rocks. Don't tell my inorganic friends that, but that's... I always tell my inorganic friends that the entire periodic table is designed to have a special place for carbon. And they get kind of mad at me. But I'm joking. Inorganic chemistry, right, is everything that's not carbon-based. So all the metals and salts and things like that. Very important area of chemistry. There are 5 traditional subdisciplines to chemistry. And as you think about the traditional fields and jobs, you need to be thinking about it in terms of those 5 subdisciplines. What might an organic chemist do? What might an inorganic chemist do? What might a biochemist do as a career? Analytical chemist, etc. Okay? So there are those 5 things, and when you're doing your research, make sure you're focusing on that so that you have broad coverage. You will find that some of this actually crosses disciplinary lines. Which of those fields up there would you call interdisciplinary, those subdisciplines? Chemistry is obviously interdisciplinary. And how do we know that? We just put together semester by semester guides, right? Are the only science courses you're required to take CHE courses? No, you're also required to take physics. Some of you are required to take biology. You're all required to take math, right? It is truly an interdisciplinary STEM field, chemistry. We call it the central science for a reason. But of those, what would you say are more foundational and which ones are more interdisciplinary? Let's start with the foundational ones. Which ones are foundational? Organic, I would say, is a foundational field. Yes. What's another one? I would say inorganic is a foundational field. And I would say analytical is a foundational. So I would say those 3 are foundational. And then I would also argue that biochemistry and physical chemistry are truly interdisciplinary fields. Biochemistry, obviously, because you have to have the biology background. It's the chemistry of biology, right? It truly is an interdisciplinary thing. You got to know physics, you got to know chemistry, you got to know biology. You even got to know some math. Because today, in biochemistry, if you're not doing molecular modeling and molecular type things, you're not really doing biochemistry. And then physical chemistry. Why is physical chemistry interdisciplinary? Physics. You definitely got to have a physics background. It is the physics of chemical processes. Okay? All right, so we have a guest. Come on in. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Jessica. She's going to come and talk to you a little bit about study abroad opportunities. So, Jessica, this is our Chemistry 108 class. These are all freshman chemistry and biochemistry majors. And many of them have already mentioned an interest in doing study abroad. So I will leave it to you for 15 or so minutes.
Hi there, my name's Jessica. How are you guys doing today? All right. all the courses that you need to have, here at Southern Miss, and then you find the equivalent of those courses at one of our partner institutions, and then you're able to, you're still getting USM credit, but yet you're going to this other university and earning that credit. That's something that's a little bit more of an independent experience because of our faculty-led programs. You're going to be with USM faculty, USM students as a group. On exchange programs, it's more independent. You might have one or two USM students going with you, but you could very well just be by yourself going to these universities. But you do have a support system either way. And that would be something you might want to start looking into if you're interested, because we definitely want to keep you on track for graduation and make it fit into your degree plan. So just keep that in mind. Our short-term faculty-led programs, eligibility requirements, for the most part, you have to have a 2.0 GPA, 12 completed hours under your belt, and then depending on some of the programs, there are prerequisites, like our Galapagos program, you need to have 2 semesters of biology under your belt, so keep that in mind if that's a program you're interested in. For exchange programs, you've got to have a little bit higher of a GPA based on the university that you would be applying to, and then there's an interview process in that sort of thing. So you can kind of see the differences by which some take a little more independence and a little more work to work toward, but they're all possible. The big question always comes down to money. How can I actually afford this? But I'm here to tell you that study abroad is in fact for college students. It's for you. It's not for rich folks. We send about 300 students abroad every year, all of them sitting in those seats thinking they can't afford it, but in fact it is possible. We encourage you to come by our office. If you want to be proactive, you can set up an appointment on our website, which is studyabroad.usm.edu. Come by, chat with one of the coordinators in the office, and we can really sit down and make a plan with you, figure out which program is best for you, and then what does that budget look like, what finances do you already have that can apply to the cost, and then what are some scholarships you can apply for to the cost. So that's all possible, but the first step is really you coming into our office to sit down and discuss more. Each one of you have a different financial background and that sort of thing, so we really like to cater this one-on-one to make sure that we fit to your finance budget. If any of you are Pell Grant eligible, keep in mind that there is something called the Gilman Scholarship, and this is up to $5,000. That's $5,000 that is your money to study abroad that you don't have to pay back. And while it is a nationally competitive scholarship, at Southern Miss we have a big turnaround of students receiving that scholarship. We have a partner in the scholarship office who sits and works with you one-on-one on your essays and applications to submit for that. In addition to the Gilman, there are plenty of other study abroad specific scholarships you can apply to, so it's definitely possible to come up with the money, but really you just got to start planning ahead of time to make sure that you give yourself enough time to save and get it all sorted.
The individual that she's referring to in the scholarships office will be coming here to talk with you all.
Oh, great.
So I forget what day I have her scheduled. I think it's the 22nd or 23rd of October. So if you have questions about things like the Gilman, that would be an excellent opportunity to talk with her.
That's fantastic. Yes, she's great. She'll be very helpful. Do you guys have any questions about study abroad?
Is the Exeter program still active?
Yes, that's one of our exchange partners, and it has been a reliable and strong partner for many years. And
Yep.
It's definitely a great option for students in sciences.
Yep. Exeter, and it's in England. I've helped a number of students evaluate their credits that they would receive from Exeter and how they would translate back to USM. We've sent a number of biochemistry majors and chemistry majors to Exeter over the years, and they come back, and all of them that I'm aware of didn't miss a beat. So, if you're thinking about if you'd like to spend a semester in England, that's a good option for chemistry and biochemistry majors, is the Exeter program. So this group of students is required to attend 3 activities every semester as part of their course credit. Would you be willing to sign off on a form if they came to visit in the office and count that as one of their activities?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And since you bring that up, I will mention in November we're having what we call International and
So if you all want to make an appointment to meet with him to discuss study abroad, again, I'll count that as one of your 3 required activities. So that would be a good option. Even if it's not on your radar right now that it might be possible for you to do study abroad, I think it's a good thing for you all to at least go and learn more about. I will tell you all that it is one of the regrets of my life when I went to college, not doing something like that. Like some of you, I probably, until I got into graduate school, rarely drifted further than 200 miles from home. And I should have traveled more. I should have done more and taken advantage of those things. So if we can find you the opportunities, and the office is there to help you find what opportunities are there to help you financially, like she was talking about with the Gilman Scholarship and other things. You know, don't let something like that be a paywall that makes you think you can't do it. Let's sit down, let's work together, let's try to find a way to make it happen. Because these types of experiences, again, it's that other curriculum that I've been talking to you about, not just your courses, but the experiences that you take away. When you get older and more rooted in your job and in your family life, these opportunities will not come back. So you really need to take advantage of them while you can. So don't think you can't. Think you can. So we've got people here who can help you make that a reality if you want to. But again, it's one of those things that you've got to reach out, go and explore. We're not going to come to you and drag you to England, okay? But if you want to go to England, you want to go to France, you want to go wherever, there are people here to help you do that.
Yes, we're in the International Center, which is where the Agora is, next to the Liberal Arts Building, on the 4th floor, room 409. We're there Monday through Friday, so stop by anytime, or, again, you can make an appointment right on our website. We'll be happy to assist you in any way that we can.
All right, well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, there's the extra ones.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good semester.
Okay. Any questions about that before we wrap up for the day? All right, so again, I will count a visit to, now we're going to have to do a note card, so don't get too packed up. We're going to have to, I will count a visit to the study abroad office as one of your activities. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that you need to meet with me one-on-one twice during the semester. I'm going to send out a reminder. Is that right? A reminder about that, and I will let you know to start scheduling those with me. The way scheduling works, when you reach out to a professor, don't reach out to a professor and say, when are you available? Always reach out and say, I need to meet with you, and these are the days and times that I'm available. And let the professor pick one that fits their schedule. That's how I always do it. So when you reach out to me, send me the days and times that you could meet, and I'll try to find something that fits the schedule. You're only going to need to meet with me one-on-one for about 15 minutes during the first meeting, where we're going to talk about how things are going for you. It's one-on-one, so no worries about talking about things in front of a bunch of people. But it's kind of just a midterm check-in, if you will. And so we'll start planning those. I hope to get those done completely out of the way within the next couple of weeks. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, we'll just pepper them throughout the day. Now Mondays, I'm here till 9 o'clock at night. So if that works for you, I'm fine with that too. So don't be afraid to put some evening times in there if that works for you, but only on Monday. I'm not going to stay up here till 9 o'clock every day after that. But my wife has a night class she has to teach, and we drive in together. So I'm here from 7:30 to 9, whatever, on Mondays. So that'll work. All right, on your note card, on one side, your name and your ID number. And on the other side, I want you to talk a little bit about the video that was about your right fit. Tell me what you learned from that video on your right fit.